So it's been pretty hard to ignore the fact that AMD has released its Ryzen CPUs for pre-order lately. It seems like everywhere you look, Ryzen fever is all you're going to see. And I don't think I've got it, but seeing as I'm currently waiting for an R7 delivery, I think I might be starting to show the symptoms of it. But nevertheless, let's go through the reasoning for doing so, and we'll talk a little bit about what's in store for this channel. First up, I want to say that even though the R7 system is a much higher spec than the i5-4590 that I usually feature on the videos, it's not going to change the focus of the channel in the slightest. I'm still going to be using that Haswell i5 system for the majority of benchmarks. The aim of this channel has always been, and it's always going to be, looking at those budget components to give enthusiasts like myself the best bang for their buck. And the main reason for buying now is this new AM4 platform. I mean, the first PC that I ever built was based around the original Athlon 64, and that offered great performance at a really reasonable price. However, AMD's recent offerings has been a little bit lacking. But with this AM4 platform, it's starting to look like things are swinging round a bit. Building a Ryzen system now is going to allow me to get familiar with the platform and get ready for when AMD release that lower R3 and R5 SKUs in the coming months, which, if rumour is to be believed, is going to really shake up the budget end of the CPU market, just like the R7 seems to be doing at the higher end. With that said though, this channel, it's the hobby for me, and away from making these videos, I work as an engineer. My daily driver is a 6-core 12-thread Xeon PC, and even the laptop I use for work and travel, it's got a 4-core 8-thread i7, and the type of work that I do, design analysis and simulations, it really uses those PCs to their pretty much full potential processor-wise. But these systems are workstations, and they cost an absolute ridiculous amount for anyone other than a corporate user who wants reliability, redundancy and error correction. But for the average Joe, it's just not worth it. The performance though is really nice, I've got to admit that, and the prospect of similar performance in a consumer product is something that's really appealed to me for a while. I had been toying with the idea of a home office setup around Skylake or KB Lake, but since a lot of the programs that I would want to use are heavily multi-threaded, the idea of spending over $1,000 on a CPU for a desktop computer, it just never really sat right with me. The low price of Ryzen, coupled with the multi-threaded benchmarks that's already been released so far, it kind of made me sit up and take notice of what AMD were doing again. And that's kind of the second reason for going with the Ryzen build at this time. Lastly, and probably the final reason for pre-ordering Ryzen, was actually Intel's reaction, and in particular the immediate price drop that happened. Discounts at the drop of a hat are always a bit of a kick in the teeth for early adopters, who've opened their wallets thinking that their purchases is probably going to represent good value for at least 6 or 7 months. Now, during the past few years, Intel have been really stringent about keeping those CPU prices high, and this gut reaction to the Ryzen launch kind of cemented in my mind that Intel know that AMD are onto something good, and they realise that they might have maybe even rested on their laurels a little bit too much and are now starting to panic. So what did I go for then? Well, it's the Ryzen R7 1700, which is the lowest SKU R7 at the moment. It's an 8-core 16-thread CPU which can boost up to 3.7 GHz, and it's got a TDP of 65 watts. For the motherboard, we went with a mid-range MSI B350 motherboard, and at the moment we're going to be coupling it with 8GB of DDR4 memory. Now, it's going to be really interesting for me to see how it kind of compares to a dedicated workstation, and also how it handles games in comparison to my budget gaming rig. So stay tuned folks, I'll be documenting the build and keeping you guys informed with my initial impressions of the Ryzen ecosystem. Thanks as always for watching folks, and also want to say thank you for the support this channel's been getting lately, and I hope that I can continue bringing you the kind of videos that you guys want to see. So with that in mind, I'll see you guys soon.